Revealed, the sinister and spine-chilling sexual practices that cursed the Middle Ages. The small-town streets of Maplewood felt like a postcard, everything in its right place, all smiles and sunshine. But that was just the surface. Beneath it lay dark whispers, secrets buried under the perfect lawns and trimmed hedges. Emily, a waitress at the diner, often caught snippets of conversation about the new neighbor, Mr. Callahan. His charm seemed palpable, but Emily's got twisted with unease every time he lingered too long on her son Jake, who was simply walking home from school. The diner buzzed with its usual routine, a cacophony of laughter, clattering plates, and sizzling grease. But tonight, the chatter grated against Emily's rising anxiety. Her heart raced as she imagined the worst. She finished her shift hours later, every shadow stretching ominously towards her. The silence of their home was deafening, it echoed with emptiness. Rushing to Jake's room, dread washed over her. The neatly made bed told her the truth she didn't want to accept: he wasn't home. As panic gripped her, memories tangled in her mind, tales from her grandmother about curses and sinister rituals from long ago, warning of devilry hidden behind smiling faces. Emily threw open the door and raced outside. The night felt heavy, each streetlight flickering like a signal. Dark shapes loomed, and her heart pounded like a drum. Symbols, strange and twisted, marked the ground like breadcrumbs leading toward Mr. Callahan's house. Nausea churned in her stomach as she ventured deeper into the woods behind their neighborhood. Her surroundings shifted, the trees leaned in closer, casting eerie shadows over her path. She stumbled upon a clearing that made her blood run cold. A bizarre shrine lay in the moonlight, a stark reminder of the superstitions she dismissed. Discarded artifacts and grotesque idols clashed with the whispered admonitions from her childhood. The symbols scratched her memory, swirling around her as her breath quickened. She recognized them, a horrific match to the warning sewn into her dreams: avoid the old sepulchre at all costs. A voice, smooth yet laced with fear, shattered her thoughts. "He's just a boy," Mr. Callahan had said earlier with that honey-dripped smile. "I find them all so charming at this age." The words curled around her like tendrils of smoke, thick and suffocating. Emily could taste the fear rising sharply in her throat. She knew she had to act. Searching for help became its own nightmare. The police dismissed her frantic pleas. "Just an overprotective mom," they shrugged, rolling their eyes. Time slipped through her fingers, darkness settled in like a shroud. With every tick of the clock, dread wrapped tighter around her throat. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With the shadows stretching longer and threatening to swallow her whole, Emily's resolve hardened. No more waiting, no more second-guessing. She would confront Mr. Callahan, wrench the truth from his cursed lips. As she approached his door, a laughter echoed in the night, a haunting sound that danced through the air, chilling her to the bone. It resonated, twisted and familiar. Standing on his porch, she felt a heavy weight closing in, its pulse matching the mounting terror in her own heart. What truly lurked within the facade of friendly smiles? Would she be ready to face the dark truth hiding just beyond her front door? Emily's heart hammered in her chest as she stood before Mr. Callahan's door. The laughter faded, leaving a void filled with thick, suffocating quiet. She took a deep breath, her palms slick with sweat. What if she was wrong? But her instincts screamed otherwise. She couldn't let fear paralyze her any longer. Raising a trembling hand, she knocked. The sound echoed unnaturally, almost mocking her, reverberating in the hollow silence. Each second stretched unbearably, and just when she thought of retreating, the door creaked open. Mr. Callahan stood before her, the very picture of affability, but there was something unsettling beneath his smile, something lurking like a shadow. "Emily, what a surprise!" He purred, his words dripping with faux warmth. He stepped aside, ushering her in with a flourish, as if inviting her into the depths of hell itself. The house exuded an oppressive silence, much like the woods she had just fled through, and the air felt heavy as if filled with 1,000 unspoken secrets. "Have you seen Jake?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, the question pushing through the lump in her throat. She couldn't let him see her fear, couldn't let him recognize the panic bubbling beneath her skin. "Ah, the charming young boy," he said, tilting his head slightly, eyes glinting in the dim light like a predator sizing up its prey. "He was just here. Not too long ago." A chill washed over Emily. Had he really been here? Panic threatened to consume her, she had to find him. "Where is he?" The words burst from her, fueled by desperation. Mr. Callahan smiled, but it was as if his entire demeanor shifted, tightening like a noose. "Relax, Emily," he said, his voice dropping to a low rasp. "You should really learn to trust your neighbors. We look out for each other here in Maplewood." Emily's instincts screamed at her to run, but her feet felt glued to the floor. Instead, she asked, "What do you mean?" Desperation fueled the question, but the answer twisted her stomach, turning the urgency of a mother's love into an unholy dread. "We help guide them through this critical age." He motioned toward a darkened corridor, just beyond the entryway. "It's an important time for their development, wouldn't you agree?" His wink made her skin crawl. "No, I don't agree," she replied, edging backward, each step fueled by instinct. "Where is my son? What have you done?" Now, Emily," he said, stepping closer as she backed away. The shadows behind him seemed to swell, moving a living entity. "You really shouldn't question the process. The rituals we share here are for their protection, their awakening." As he spoke, the flickering overhead light cast odd shapes on the walls, twisting the contours of the room into grotesque figures. Something was very wrong, the air thickened with an unspeakable dread that made her gasp. Suddenly, from deep within the house, she heard it, the soft whimper of a child. It was Jake. No longer listening to anything but the call of her son, she turned and bolted for the door. If she could just reach him, just get out of there, Emily. Mr. Callahan's voice rang out behind her, calm yet deadly. "You're overreacting. This is only the beginning." Ignoring him, she burst through the door, the night air hitting her like a wave. The trees loomed ominously around her, shadows shifting and morphing, as she sprinted toward the sound. She could hear his cries growing louder now, pulling her like a lifeline, but with every step, the woods felt deeper, darker, as if they were swallowing her whole. As she tore through the underbrush, a wave of eerie laughter filled the air, echoing off the trees as if the very forest was alive, mocking her. "Emily!" The voice echoed again, her motherly heart racing, torn between hope and horror. But then she halted, caught in a freeze frame of terror, as a flash of silver caught her eye ahead, a glimmer of something sharp nestled beneath the roots of a tree. It was glinting, glowing ominously in the pale moonlight. Just what had she stumbled into? As she reached for it, the laughter crescendoed, reverberating throughout the woods as if the darkness itself was coming for her. The fading cries of her son rang out, and she was left with a heart-stopping choice: would she dare delve deeper into the shadowy secrets, or flee from the malevolence lurking in the trees? In that moment, the ground beneath her trembled. What sinister force had been awoken? The real horror only just beginning, as roots twisted around her ankles like serpents seeking their prey. The roots tightened, constricting around Emily's ankles, pulling her toward the earth. She gasped, heart racing, as she fought against the unyielding grip. The laughter continued, echoing through the trees, louder and more mocking than before, twisting her fear into something almost tangible. She pulled harder, desperation coursing through her. "Jake!" The name slipped out as a frantic cry, but the silence that followed made her stomach churn. No response came. Only the sinister laughter seemed aware of her struggle. Each sound felt like it was suffocating her, drowning her in dread. With one last effort, she wrenched herself free. Gritting her teeth against the pain, she stumbled away from the tree that had tried to claim her. The sharp glint from below still caught her eye, but now it felt more ominous than intriguing. She could almost hear it whispering, calling for her to join the darkness. "No!" she shouted, shaking her head, as if to ward off the terrifying allure. She turned away, sprinting deeper into the woods, her heart pounding like a war drum. Each frantic breath filled her lungs with the cold, damp air of the night, but it only added fuel to her flight, stronger now with fear for her son pushing her onward. "Keep calling!" she bellowed, hoping against hope that Jake could hear her above the chaos. "I'm coming!" The laughter faded momentarily, replaced by a soft, trembling whimper she recognized instantly. "Mommy!" The voice echoed through the trees, fragile and uncertain, sending a jolt of ice down her spine. She raced toward the sound, oblivious to the branches clawing at her skin. They snagged her clothes, pulling at her like claws trying to drag her back, bind her to the shadows. "Jake!" she called out again, urgency coursing through her veins. The darkness pressed in, wrapping around her, threatening to swallow her whole. Finally, she burst into a small clearing, illuminated by ghostly moonlight. And there, nestled against the cold hard trunk of a tree, sat Jake. He looked scared, his eyes wide and frantic, tears streaking down his dirt-smudged face. Relief washed over her like a tidal wave. "Mom!" He reached for her, the innocence in his voice juxtaposed against the suffocating dread of the woods. She rushed forward, arms outstretched, and pulled him into a crushing embrace. "Thank God," she whispered, tears mingling with the rain on her cheeks. But her relief was short-lived. Shadows flickered in the trees, shifting like wisps of smoke, and she felt the oppressive weight of eyes watching. An unearthly chill shot through the air, making the hairs on the back of her neck stand on end. There was something out there, lurking just beyond the veil of darkness. "We have to go," she urged, pulling Jake to his feet. He looked up at her with questioning, innocent eyes, as if they were too small to comprehend the danger closing in. "Where?" he asked, his voice trembling. Emily stopped, fear gripping her heart anew. She had to think fast, there's nowhere safe. The laughter rose again, and this time it was closer, sharper, more menacing. The malevolence of the forest thrummed with life, and she felt trapped in a waking nightmare. The air crackled with tension as if something deep within the woods was stirring, preparing for a feast. Drawing Jake closer, Emily scanned the perimeter of the clearing, panic igniting within her. Just then, she remembered the eerie glint, something sharp on the ground where she had stumbled earlier. "Stay close," she whispered, and they began to back away from the encroaching darkness, but suddenly, the shadows shifted again, coalescing into a darker form, taller than any tree. A voice, smooth yet gravelly, echoed through the clearing. "Leaving so soon?" "We were just getting started." Emily's heart sank as the figure emerged, and she felt Jake tremble against her side. The air thickened, her breath caught in her throat. What are you?" The figure grinned, an impossibly wide smile revealing too many teeth glinting like knives. "Oh, Emily, dear, the night is young. You and your precious boy have so much to learn about our little traditions." The world around them seemed to pulse, the laughter now a cacophony, spiraling into madness. And in an instant, with the figure looming closer, Emily understood there were no choices left. There was only one path to take. In that moment, Jake's small fingers slipped from her grasp. "Mommy!" he cried, and she turned just in time to see him pulled backwards into the shadows. Panic surged through her, and as she lunged for him, Emily felt the darkness close in around her. What sinister ritual awaited them in the trees, and would she be able to retrieve her son before it was too late? The deeper she sank into the forest, the more she realized some awakenings were not meant to happen. A sharp gasp escaped Emily's lips as darkness engulfed her. She felt the chill wrapping around her like a suffocating blanket, creeping into her very bones. The laughter transformed into a sinister chorus, surrounding her, but all she could focus on was the image of Jake being pulled from her grasp. She stumbled into the shadows, panic clawing at her throat. Jake! She screamed, her voice a frayed thread in the wind. The branches closed in around her, whispering like a crowd of unseen spectators, their breath a cold shiver against her skin. She strained her ears, listening for any sign of her son, praying the darkness would give up its prize. "Mommy," came a small, muffled cry from somewhere ahead. Hope ignited a flicker within her, driving her forward through the oppressive gloom. She pushed past the branches, splintering underfoot, drawing ever closer to the sound. "Hold on, sweetheart. I'm coming," she shouted back, but every step felt more treacherous. The shadows conspired against her, tangling her legs, bathing her in dread. Then, from the void, something shifted, a presence looming at the edge of her vision. It was the figure again, the grinning malevolence, stretching unnaturally towards her. "You can't escape the darkness, Emily," it purred, "it knows your heart and your fears." Adrenaline propelled her forward. "Leave us alone," she yelled, brandishing a broken branch she had picked up as a weapon. The laughter grew louder, vibrating through the ground beneath her feet, mocking her defiance. She raised the makeshift weapon, ready to swing at whatever horror approached, but only a faint glimmer in the distance caught her eye. There. The glint from before. "Jake!" she cried, the spark of steel like a beacon in the night. She charged toward it, feeling the figure's grip slip behind her as she crossed an unseen threshold. The laughter turned to a low growl, and she sensed the forest shift, the shadows unsure whether to pursue or retreat. As she reached the glimmer, she knelt down. A rusted dagger lay half buried in the earth, ancient and twisted, an artifact of darkness and despair. She could feel its weight in her hand as she picked it up, the cold metal seeming to vibrate with a strange energy, humming with the echoes of past horrors. "Jake!" she called again, the dagger serving as both a shield and a torch against the encroaching night. "I'm coming. Mommy!" The cry came again, now sounding urgent, cutting through her resolve. The laughter spiraled, fading momentarily like a tide pulled back from the shore, creating silence within the chaos. She could see a faint outline ahead, a figure against the shadowed backdrop of the trees. "Jake!" She sprinted towards the silhouette, heart-hammering hope and dread intertwined. The shadows around her stirred, restless and agitated, like a storm brewing. As she gained ground, the figure resolved into her son's familiar form, cowering against the gnarled trunk of a tree, but just as she reached him, darkness surged from all sides, gripping her like an iron vice. The figure materialized once more, this time closer, its face hollow and grinning, teeth bared in a predatory smile. "Did you really think it would be that easy, dear Emily?" it taunted. "We want to celebrate your arrival." Emily's breath caught. She felt the dagger slip in her palm, a reminder of her strength buried deep beneath the fear. She had to act, had to choose. The woods were alive with their sinister traditions, and every moment stretched painfully toward an unthinkable conclusion. Desperately, she lifted the dagger, feeling its energy pulse through her veins. "I want to let you take him," she shouted, galvanizing her spirit. The figure recoiled, laughter turning to shrieks as the air thickened around them. In that moment of resolve, boundaries between the living and lingering blurred, and Emily faced the darkness that threatened to consume her family. "Jake, hold on!" she yelled, as she felt the weight of ancient eyes bearing down upon them, a sinister audience drawn to the unfolding chaos. But just then, something shifted again in the shadows. "Mommy!" Jake's voice seeped into the heavy silence, trembling with fear all its own. And as Emily turned, she felt a deep, gut-wrenching realization wash over her: the woods had chosen its prey long before she had arrived. Was her courage enough to break the binding darkness, or were they already too late? Emily's heart thudded painfully against her chest as a cold wave of dread washed over her. The shadows writhed, blending into the trees like smoke, pulling closer as if drawn to the energy of the dagger she clutched. "Jake, stay close!" she shouted, trying to drown out the horror closing in on them. The dark figure chuckled, low and menacing, every laugh echoed by countless whispers seeping from the depths of the forest. "Oh, but they love the thrill of the chase," it hissed, its long fingers curling as if it might strike. "Jake!" Emily cried again, fear twisting her voice. She wanted to rush to him, to pull him into her arms, but the ground beneath her quaked. She felt the earth shift, as if it were alive, hungry. The dagger, for all its power, felt like a mere whisper against the malevolence surrounding them. "Mommy!" Jake wailed, desperation lacing his voice. She could see him clearly now, terror painted across his small face as he pressed against the tree like a fragile flower against a storm. The twinkling light in his eyes flickered like a candle in the wind. "Hold on. Just hold on." Emily managed, forcing her legs to move. Each step felt agonizingly slow, shadows snatching at her ankles, clawing at her resolve. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, but every part of her being was rooted to the spot through the knot of fear that tied her to Jake. The figure lunged, darting forward, its smile widening, revealing rows of jagged teeth. "What will you sacrifice, dear Emily? The woods will feast on your suffering." She raised the dagger defiantly. "I won't let you touch him." The blade glinted sharply, and she felt the surge of something power, maybe, or desperation course through her. For an electric moment, the figure hesitated. In that brief silence, Emily seized the opportunity. "Jake! Come to me!" she screamed. She extended a hand toward him, her body a barrier against the encroaching terror, a mother protecting her child. "Mommy!" He pushed away from the tree, moving through the thick gloom like a beam of light. With each step, the sinister laughter faded just a bit, replaced by the sound of rustling leaves like whispers of hope. But the shadows surged, and with a sudden jolt, the air thickened, pressing against her like a heavy fog. Emily felt a burning in her chest, fear and pain gripping her, pulling her back. "No!" she hissed, fighting against the suffocating presence. "I want to let you keep us." But the figure lunged again, darkness spilling from its frame like liquid night. "You don't understand, Emily," it rasped, "this forest offers us your fear. Your son is not the prize, you are." With a roar, the shadows exploded, enveloping her in a swirling vortex of despair. Emily could feel the dagger slipping through her fingers as she grappled for stability in the chaos. Panic swirled within her like a tempest, an icy dread drowning the hope she clung to. "Emily!" A new voice pierced through the cacophony, another cry from within the darkness. A looming presence stepped forward, looking oddly familiar. "Emily, help! It's so cold." Jake's form flickered near her now, but the other voice sent shivers down her spine. "No! Stay back!" she screamed, feeling the heat drain from the air as she turned. She was losing him. Bodies whispered past her, shifting in the dark, their presence suffocating. With every ounce of strength, she twisted to face the cold dread that had found her again, the very thing she had come to fear most, unseen but palpably close. "Run, Jake!" Emily shouted, but another piercing scream broke the dawn of hope as the darkness roared, pushing back against her fragile spirit that if she didn't make a choice soon, she risked losing everything. What was lurking in the shadows, and how far was she willing to go to save her son? The forest held its breath, as if poised on the precipice of an unspeakable horror. And just when Emily thought she might break free, a whisper echoed around them, so close it sent chills spiraling down her spine. Embrace the darkness. Was it Jake? Or the lurking fiend? Fear surged through her veins as she felt the weight of not just the woods, but an ancient curse, tightening its grip. And as she faced the encroaching shadows, she realized, every choice would have its price. What sacrifice would it demand? The swirling darkness pressed heavily upon Emily, tendrils of shadow curling and clutching at her limbs like 1,000 icy fingers. Panic gripped her heart, squeezing tight until she could hardly breathe. The dagger slipped from her grasp, clattering against the roots of the massive tree beside her, its power rendered useless against the looming threat. "Mommy, please!" Jake shouted, his tiny voice quaking with fear. It cut through the clamor of chaos like a beacon, but the shadows were relentless, gnashing and twisting around them. Even through the fear, Emily felt a growing resolve ignite within her. She had to save Jake, at any cost. "Stay behind me," she commanded, her voice a mixture of defiance and anxiety. She scanned the blackness, searching for any sign of movement, a hint of where the figure had gone. The whispers swirled louder, a cacophony of taunts and laughter invading her mind. "Does it hurt, Emily?" The suffocating terror. The anguish. The dark figure's voice echoed from every direction, wrapping around her, taunting her. It was becoming harder to differentiate between the shadows and her own despair. "You think you can protect him? The darkness thrives on fear, and you're both ripe for the picking." With a sudden surge, shadows lunged at her, a wave of darkness crashing against her. Emily felt the ground tremble as if warning her of the impending doom. She felt the panic rising in her throat, choking the words she wanted to scream. But her eyes remained focused on Jake, his face pale and eyes wide with terror, glistening with unshed tears. "Run!" she warned, desperation pouring from her. "Hold on to your light." Jake's small feet scrambled away from her, but the shadows danced around him, seeking him out with a hunger that made the air shimmer with dread. Emily stepped forward, feeling the oppressive weight of the dark mass pushing against her, crumpling her resolve. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, to abandon the fight and save herself. But the thought of leaving Jake behind, a mother's instinct stronger than the pull of fear, ignited a fire within her. She reached for the dagger on the ground, feeling its cold, metallic surface against her skin. The shadows hissed, recoiling slightly as if they feared its power. "Emily! Help me! It's cold!" The call no, a demand pierced the fog of her determination. But it wasn't Jake who spoke. "Help us!" It echoed from beyond, a creeping sound familiar yet chilling, piercing her heart like ice. "Who are you?" she cried out, her voice unsteady. "I'm just like him, Emily, just lost." The voice whispered seductively, seductive yet sinister, echoing with a twisted familiarity. "No!" she shouted defiantly. "You're not him." Fury ignited within her as she grasped the dagger tightly, turning toward the shadows that pressed in, their sickly laughter rising to a fever pitch. The time for hesitation had passed. "I will break your hold," Emily declared, raising the dagger high. A bright light erupted from its blade, casting the surrounding shadows into retreat. The whispers turned to screams, a chorus of rage and fear mixing in a frenzied crescendo. She had tapped into the power hidden within, battling back against the darkness that threatened to swallow her whole. "Stay close, Jake," she called again, the glow from the dagger illuminating her path for her son. But Jake's eyes were glued to the emerging figure from the shadows, a flicker of recognition. "Mommy, is that you?" he stammered, his voice wavering, laced with confusion. "What do you mean?" "It's me." The figure approached, revealing features too similar, too painfully like her own. "Your sacrifice is what he needs, Emily," it cooed, the familiarity sending a new wave of dread crashing down on her sanity. "Step away from him." Her voice resonated with authority, fueled by the fierce love of a mother. But uncertainty began to creep into her heart, battling against clarity. Was this apparition trying to save her son, or was it just another layer of manipulation intended to consume them both? The shadows gathered strength again, swirling tighter, a suffocating cyclone around them, and that S when she heard it, a pulse, steady and relentless, reverberating from deep within the forest. With a heavy heart, she realized the bitter truth. The dagger's light flickered, hinting at a connection she hadn't understood until now. The darkness wasn't just a monster lurking in the woods. It was something more, something deeply tied to her own past. Emily's thoughts raced. If she was the key, what sacrifice lay ahead of her? The blood pulsed in her veins, and with a sickening dread, she felt the weight of the realization, she wasn't just fighting for her son, but against herself. Is this the end, or just the beginning? She whispered into the growing dark, but lurking shadows eagerly awaited her answer, and with every choice poised, the price seemed more immense than she had ever realized. The forest held its breath, ready to unravel the dark secrets of her fate. The shadows quivered, a living tapestry of despair that danced with every flicker of the dagger's light. Emily's heart thundered against her ribcage, each beat urging her to act, to choose. The pulse from deep within the forest grew louder, drumming in her ears, drowning out the screams of despair that twisted through the air. It was both an invitation and a warning, a haunting heartbeat belonging to something ancient and primal. "Mommy, I'm scared," Jake whimpered, clinging to her leg. His tiny hands trembled against her skin as her eyes darted between the darkness and the figure that mirrored her own face, contorting into a mocking smile that chilled her to the bone. "Get away from him," she shouted, brandishing the dagger with trembling hands. The light flickered, casting her own shadow high over the looming darkness, but the fear within her threatened to smother that glow. "Sacrifice, dear Emily, it always comes down to that," the figure taunted, step by step edging closer to Jake. "He is too innocent, too pure for this world. But you? You know the darkness well." "No," she screamed defiantly. "I will not let you take him." The shadows recoiled as if stung, that didn't stop them, however. They surged forward, thick and suffocating. Emily could feel the pressure bearing down on her, whispering that defeat was inevitable. Despair slithered into her mind, insistent and merciless. And suddenly, she realized, the whispers weren't just surrounding her, they were inside her. They were her own fears, her hidden memories clawing their way back. She thought of all the nights spent cloaked in solitude, all those moments of wishing for something more, something better. Had she not willingly dipped her hands in darkness before? The pulsating heartbeat grew in urgency. Emily raised the dagger, channeling her fighting spirit, each breath forming a shield around Jake. "You're not me," she shouted, her voice ringing clear, stronger than the shadowy whispers. "Are you so sure?" The figure replied, its voice honeyed yet sharp as it mirrored her doubts. "You crave power, Emily, don't deny it. It's always been in you." The ground trembled beneath them, as root and soil shifted. The echoes of laughter twisted into a chorus of sobs, the trees themselves swaying like tortured souls. Yet, the presence of Jake at her side anchored her. No matter her past, he deserved warmth and safety. With newfound strength, Emily charged forward, the dagger's light brightening in defiance. A surge of energy flowed from it, illuminating the air with a golden glow that pushed back the shadows. A primal roar erupted from the depths of the forest, shrieking in rage as the dark figure wavered before her. "Mommy!" Jake cried out, reaching for her. She took a shaky step back, locking eyes with her son, and that connection stoked the fire inside her. The familiar figure recoiled, its features twitching with anger and fear, losing form under the radiant glow. It became a swirling mass of dripping darkness. "You think you can, I will save him," she interrupted, a vow resonating within her heart, overpowering all doubts. As she plunged the dagger into the earth, a blinding eruption followed, unleashing a wave of light. The shadows bowed and fled, howling in protest, pulling at her sanity but failing to break her resolve. But then, a shriek of laughter erupted from within the shadows, dark and cruel. "You think this is over? There is a cost to your defiance, Emily. You will find your light has consequences." The ground quaked violently. Emily struggled to stand. The dagger pulsed in rhythm with the heartbeat of the forest, and the world around her began to warp, shadows swirling, distorting reality. "Mommy!" Jake squeaked as the trees swayed, branches snapping like bones. Then it hit her, a sudden realization that gripped her with icy fingers. The connection wasn't just to her past. What if she was not merely a victim, but a key player in this dark game, entwined with the forest's curse? With one last glance at Jake, the laughter echoed one final time, ominous and threatening. "Beware, Emily, the shadows will return, hungrier than before." The woods, the dark, and their secrets loomed, just as the pulse quickened beneath her feet. What would be left of her once the price was paid? As darkness flowed through the cracks, pulling lightly at her resolve, Emily understood they were far from safe. "Jake, we need to go, now," she shouted. But in the depths of the woods, lurking shadows were already plotting their return. Would they pay the ultimate price to free themselves from the darkness once and for all? Emily grabbed Jake's hand tightly, her fingers wrapping around his small wrist as they stumbled backward, away from the swirling darkness. The forest seemed alive, a breathing entity intent on swallowing them whole. Each footfall echoed with an urgency that mirrored her racing heart, and every crack of a branch felt like the teeth of the shadows snapping at their heels. "Mommy, what is happening?" Jake's voice quivered with fear, his wide eyes darting around as if expecting something to leap from the trees at any moment. She could barely muster the strength to answer. "Just hold on to me, baby, we have to keep moving." She led him through the maze of gnarled trees, their bark twisted and knotted, as though they too were part of the sinister force pursuing them. She could feel the heat of her fear rising, thick and acrid, and she fought to keep panic at bay. The knife pulsed softly at her hip, a reminder of the power she had wielded. But was it enough? In the distance, a low growl resonated, a chilling sound that sent a wave of dread crashing over her. They weren't alone. The shadows were regrouping, reinvigorated by her momentary lapse of intention. She could hear them whispering snatches of her past, clutching at her mind, dragging her back into memories better left buried. "You crave power," the taunts echoed, gnawing at her resolve. What did the figure mean? In her heart, she knew that darkness was a part of her, a truth she could no longer hide from. But she wouldn't let it win. Not now. "Mommy, look." Jake pointed toward a flickering light in the distance. It pulsated like a heartbeat, a beacon of promise cutting through the dread that clawed at their backs. "Can we go there?" Emily hesitated. But the shadowy mist pressed in, stretching like cold fingers toward them. She nodded, forcing her legs to carry them in that direction despite the darkness still howling behind them. As they neared the light, it swirled around them like golden smoke, illuminating the path forward. A vast clearing opened up, the ground littered with remnants of what once was a rickety old cabin, with its doors swinging anxiously in the evening breeze. It stood like a ghost, forlorn and inviting all at once. "Should we go inside?" Jake asked, clutching her tight. "Yes, but be quiet," Emily urged, glancing over her shoulder. She knew their safety was only a momentary illusion. Inside, the air held a musty scent, thick with age. She quickly scanned the interior, taking stock of the wooden beams and dusty furniture, remnants of a life that had long since faded. "Mommy," Jake's voice trembled. "What?" she whispered harshly, half turned to stare at him, half expecting a shadow to spring forth from behind an old chair. "Look at the walls." Her heart dropped. Strange, swirling symbols were etched into the wood, a dark language she felt eerily drawn to, as if they whispered secrets only she was meant to hear. The sensation left her lightheaded, igniting the fear in her gut. "What does it mean?" she murmured, not expecting an answer. Jake shivered, eyes wide. "I don't know, but it feels bad." Before she could respond, a rumbling crash resounded from outside. The shadows had found them. "We have to hide." She pulled him behind a battered table, both of them crouching low, breath shallow and hearts pounding. Emily could barely think over the roar of foreboding that filled the cabin, the shadows wrestling with the light that flickered around them. As the door creaked ominously open, revealing a morass of darkness, Emily felt the walls close in. They needed to escape, but the back door was gone, swallowed into the void. "Mommy," Jake whispered, "what if we can't?" The shadows gathered, a mass of swirling rage. Emily's pulse matched the rhythmic thump against the cabin walls. She gripped the dagger, resolved to fight back, but the weight of inevitability settled over her like a shroud that it was all slipping away. Just then, the whispers exploded into chaos, urging her toward the symbols on the walls. "You have the power. Embrace it." Emily felt the tug of darkness mixed with the urge to protect Jake. A choice loomed before her, one that could spell doom or salvation. "Do you believe in me?" she whispered to Jake, who looked up with trusting eyes, not knowing the full truth. "Yes, Mommy." In that moment, faced with the encroaching shadows, she understood. Embracing her power wasn't the end, it was a chance. But at what cost? As the dark figures swirled and bent on feasting on her and Jake, Emily stepped forward, dagger raised. "Let us see if you really want me." But did she truly want to bargain with the darkness? As she plunged the blade deeper into the symbols, flesh and shadow intertwined, she felt the pulse of consequence surge through her. Would they be saved or consumed? The shadow howled, and as Emily's world spiraled into chaos, she knew the answer could ruin everything. What dark truth lay waiting deep within her, ready to awaken? Would the forest force her to confront the shadow lurking in her own heart? The moment Emily drove the dagger into the wall, a shockwave pulsed through the cabin, forcing everything around her to shudder. The symbols glowed with an eerie light, illuminating every corner of the room while casting grotesque shadows that twisted and writhed like tortured souls. Jake clutched her leg, his eyes wide with disbelief and terror. "Mommy, I don't like this." Ignoring his plea, she felt the dagger hum with a dark power. It spoke to her, not in words, but in a raw, primal instinct, an intoxicating whisper that filled her with both dread and exhilaration. "Harness it," the shadows seemed to breathe, swirling closer as if drawn to her anger and fear. "Stay behind me," she commanded, every muscle in her body tightening. The darkness coalesced into a thick fog, forming shapes that danced around the edges of her vision, taunting her. She felt the weight of their gaze, heavy and hungry, boring into her. The growling outside morphed into guttural laughter, echoing within the confines of the old cabin. It felt like she was surrounded, caged by memories, and visions of a past she couldn't escape. The deeper she plunged the dagger, the more it seemed to blur the boundary between her reality and the abyss. "Emily, embrace your true self," the shadows hissed. Strange feelings surged within her, painful and thrilling, an intoxicating mix of power and despair. It felt so familiar, like a long-lost friend she had tried to forget. Suddenly, the floor beneath them warped and twisted, roots bursting through the wooden planks, snaking toward her, reaching for her soul. "No!" she shouted, lifting the blade higher. "Get away from us!" The air crackled with energy as Emily took a wild swing with the dagger, severing one of the writhing roots. It recoiled violently, hissing as if in pain, disappearing into the darkened corners of the room. But the victory felt fleeting. New shapes emerged, hungry and relentless. Overhead, the beams creaked ominously, a distorted chorus of anger and frustration, as if the cabin were alive, responding to the conflict. "Mommy!" Jake screamed, tears streaming down his cheeks. "It's coming! They're coming for us!" The shadows coiled tighter, a tempest of nightmares, their whispers blending into a cacophony that pierced through her resolve. "You chose this. You wield the darkness." Emily fell to her knees as the weight of her past settled heavily in her chest. Memories ebbed and flowed like the rising tide, dark secrets, choices she made that had always lingered, always haunted her. They surged forward, filling her with shame and regret. But then, from their depths, a fierce light flickered, a glimmer of hope. She slammed the dagger into the ground, unleashing a surge of energy that resonated through her body. A barrier of light enveloped Jake and her like a protective ride, pushing the shadows back momentarily. Their growling dissipated into a low whine as if they realized the fight was about to shift. "Help us!" Emily cried, her voice cracking. "What am I supposed to do?" In that fleeting moment, the gilded light of the symbols shone down, showing her a path, a way to wield the darkness without becoming it. It felt wrong, intoxicating, but also like a lifeline. "Mommy, I'm scared." Jake whimpered from behind her. The shadows flared, sensing her hesitation. They lunged as if testing the barrier, the howls becoming shriller, more desperate. Emily felt the walls of the cabin begin to tremble, echoing with their fury. "Stand back!" She could feel the power surging within her, a cauldron of agony and strength. As she pulled herself to her feet, she dared to embrace the darkness swirling around her not as an enemy, but as a force she could control. Raising the dagger again, she focused her will, heart pounding with each breath, and shouted, "I won't run any longer. You are not my master." With that, she plunged the knife down, channeling every ounce of fear, regret, and power into that single act. The shadows screamed, and for a moment, silence fell like a heavy cloak. Everything froze. But still, the cabin trembled and the darkness roared. Back angrier than before. Would Emily survive the wrath she had unleashed? As the very foundation of the cabin began to crack, a chilling thought raced through her mind: what would happen when the shadows finally decided to break free? Could she protect Jake from what lay beyond? Or would they be consumed in the chaos of the choices she had made? The darkness recoiled momentarily, convulsing against the flare of light that engulfed Emily and Jake. It was an uneasy truce, a slight reprieve in a battle teetering on the edge of oblivion. Emily's heart raced, the cold dread still lacing through her veins, but a flicker of defiance ignited within her. She could feel a shift, a swelling power that coursed through her like wildfire. With trembling hands, she clutched the dagger, its ancient metal now radiating warmth, as if acknowledging her will to fight back. "Stay close to me, Jake," she whispered, her voice steady in the clamor of darkness surrounding them. She sensed the shadows scrambling at the edges of their haven, beating against the bounds of light like 1,000 anguished souls desperate for release. "Mommy." Jake's voice trembled with uncertainty, but there was a spark in his wide eyes, a glimmer of trust. It made Emily's resolve harden further. She would not let the darkness claim him, would not let it consume their fragile light. The whispering shadows slithered back, churning and swirling like a storm poised to strike. Emily inhaled deeply, pushing down the shivers of fear that threatened to take root. "You feed on our fear," she shouted into the maelstrom. "But I refuse to be afraid any longer." The shadows hissed, their anger palpable, clashing against the walls of their wooden cage. "Break the cycle." The words surged from within, giving Emily strength. In a daring burst of courage, she took a step forward into the pulsing darkness. The shadows recoiled, but she felt the dagger resonate with her will, lighting up the depths with an empowering glow. "Mommy!" Jake cried as he clutched her arm, feeling the rising tension crackle in the air around them. The shadowy figure appeared again, a distorted reflection of Emily herself, its features shifting, mocking. "You think you can control it? You think you can wield the darkness?" It taunted, laughter echoing like thunder. Emily gritted her teeth, unwilling to entertain doubt. "This darkness has no hold on me. I accept my strength." The dagger pulsed brighter at that declaration. The oppressive energy thickened, a wave of shadows swirling to engulf them, but the light pushed back fiercely, illuminating Emily's fierce determination. "Your light is nothing," the figure screeched, launching itself at her. "Not without my son." She thrust the dagger forward, its shimmering edge slicing through the shadow like a lighthouse beam scattering fog. The light flared fiercely as it struck the pulsating darkness, engulfing the figure before her. "I choose to protect my son. I choose life." A roar erupted from the shadows, a haunting cacophony of anguish and fury, reverberating through the woods. The ancient curse binding this forest, its sinister rituals thrumming through every tree, screamed in defiance of her claim. Suddenly, the ground trembled violently beneath her feet, causing the cabin to sway. Cracks spiderwebbed across the floorboards as if the very foundation was splitting under the strain. Emily felt tears sting her eyes as she pulled Jake close. "Hold on tight." With a final surge of energy, she dug the dagger into the floor beside her. "Let the light reclaim what is ours." The symbol's glow intensified, flooding the cabin with a brilliance that sent shockwaves through the darkness. A moment passed, silence falling like a heavy shroud. Then, the night erupted in anguished roars, the shadows twisting violently before being consumed in a blinding light. The hybrid figure drew back, howling as it disintegrated into a swirl of smoke. Emily felt a dizzying release and a peaceful warmth envelop them, washing over the remnants of fear. The shadows fled, retreating into the depths of the forest, leaving nothing but a haunting echo of their lost power. Gradually, the cabin solidified, the oppressive weight lifted as sunlight broke over the horizon, filtering through the splintered windows. "Mommy?" Jake's voice quivered, uncertainty still lingering. He peered at her, his innocent gaze willing her to confirm they were safe. Emily knelt and pulled him tightly into her arms, a sob of relief escaping her lips. "It's over, baby. We're safe. I promise." As they embraced, the shadows faded into memory. The curse bound within the woods crumbled, unraveling centuries of darkness as the sun brightened the sky. The trees, once twisted and sinister, transformed into beacons of hope, standing tall and proud as life renewed around them. Emily wept, not from fear or pain, but from gratitude. They had faced the darkness together, and endured it all. They had fought, and emerged not just as survivors but as warriors. With a heart still trembling from the echoes of their journey, she whispered, "Let us go home." Grasping Jake's small hand in hers, they stepped outside into a dawn that sparkled with fresh beginnings, and new promises. Maplewood streets lay ahead, welcoming them back into the light. As the dawn broke over Maplewood, sealing the darkness into the past, Emily knew they would carry the shadows within them, but it was their light that would forever shine brighter. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. This is the moment to show your support for the channel. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. And make sure to instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.